What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us on this special talk with the Asian Hustle Network here at the Santa Clara City Library. My name is Daniel Lay. I am a librarian here, and I'm just grateful to have two amazing people with me today, two amazing friends. I like to read a little bio before you kick it off. The Asian Hustle Network was created by Bryan Pham and Maggie Chui on November 8th, 2019. They had a vision to create a global impact for the Asian entrepreneurial community. They both understood that in Asian culture, we were always taught to keep our heads down and not to create chaos. However, in our ever evolving generation, they believe that we must use our voices, empower ourselves and our peers, and claim our heritage at the same time. And I think we all can do that. Without further ado, everybody, welcome the Asian Hustle Network. And I'll clap because I'm the audience right now.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you,
How you
I'm
guys
Dan.
doing?
good. I love how you put so much emphasis into our introduction, and thank you so much for the generous introduction. Spoken like a true librarian.
I'm so fired
Well,
up.
we're trying to break the stigma of a quiet librarian. I'm definitely not that person, so we're about to change that up. But definitely, just tell me a little bit about yourselves. Where you guys are at. What city, and how'd you all meet, and what you do today.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Maggie.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can start off and say that my parents pretty much came from Hong Kong,
Mm.
and they met while they were in the Bay Area after they had immigrated here in the 1970s. And so after they had met, they had my two older sisters, had me in San Francisco. And they pretty much come from a very non-entrepreneurial background. So they really encouraged me and my two sisters to work hard, get a good job, after graduating. And that was pretty much it. My dad, he was extremely frugal. He, often really looked towards the government to, get any benefits as he could. And he didn't like, gambling or, buying any real estate, and he didn't really encourage us to do those type of things, right? So I really didn't have a very entrepreneurial background growing up. And so after I graduated from SF State with a finance degree. I pretty much worked in local government jobs, and then it kind of transitioned to tech. But I never really had like an entrepreneurial background until I met Bryan, pretty much. And so Bryan can really can dive into it later on too, but I think that he was very much like a go-getter. He was very much into entrepreneurship, and it kind of opened my eyes. So to put it shortly, I didn't really have much of that entrepreneurial spirit back then, but now just meeting so many entrepreneurs, and we'll talk about Asian Hustle Network in a bit as well, just meeting so many incredible go-getters, hustlers, entrepreneurs has really opened up my eyes to this whole new world. And it's just been incredible. And it's really kind of made me grow into a different human being. So, yeah.
I also want to credit Maggie because she has been my rock throughout this entire journey. I think for me, it's like I always go at 200 miles per hour, and just having her anchor me down, double check my work, be a realist to me sometimes. Be like, hey, are you moving too quickly? Are we doing too many things now? Because for me, it's like I find a sense of fulfillment when I help other people, when I listen to the community, when I connect with other people. It just gives me a sense of like adrenaline that I can't describe. I love it. I feel it. I just want to do more. And sometimes that could be a negative. Like it burns me out and it makes me question what am I doing with my time, because now I have no time. It's I feel like it got to a point where every single day was like meetings after meetings after meetings where literally I wasn't spending any more time on myself, and just having Maggie like anchor me down and be like, hey, like you need to cut down, you need to like protect yourself, you need to protect your mental state, your mind state. So I do apologize to some people that have been reaching out to me lately that I have not had the mental capacity to respond to because I'm just like I can't handle any more DMs, you know. Um, so about my background, I was kind of a part of entrepreneurship throughout my entire 20s, and I'm in my 30s now. And the reason being, it's like I see my parents hustle really hard, and they're entrepreneurs themselves. But our definitions of entrepreneurs are extremely different, right? They were entrepreneurs because they have no other choice to be entrepreneurs. They didn't go to college, they didn't go to school. They had no choice but to make things happen, you know? Whereas their definition of success is like having a kid that went to college, gets a high paying job, lives a very fulfilling life, can buy any toys or whatever, right? But the most ironic thing is like that's not the kind of life that we want to live, because we want to live a very fulfilling life. So as a result, the word hustle and Asian Hustle Network came from me side hustling while I'm working my corporate job. So I used to work as a software engineer. And I just remember like going in and out of work and just thinking to myself as I'm driving home, I'm like, is this all there is to life? Just working and making money. Yeah, making money is great, but like I just feel so sad, and lonely. I wasn't sure if anyone else felt that way, because it's something that you just don't talk about your friends about, because they just look at you and be like, bro, you make six figures and you complain to me about life? Shut up. Basically, that's what they keep saying to me. And it just feels awkward over time. Until finally I'm like, there must be like something else that we can do. And the whole idea of Asian Hustle Network came about when I was talking to Maggie, and we noticed a lot of things with the Asian diaspora. It's like we noticed that we're fragmented. We know we were divided. We know that there's a lot of cultural unlearning that we had to do, and these are cultural learnings that we had to unlearn ourselves throughout our entrepreneurial journey too. And we wanted to make sure that, you know, if we that we don't want to make sure that everyone else doesn't have to go to this journey by themselves. Because when we went through it by ourselves, it was the most horrifying thing. It's like, am I the only one who feels this way? Am I the only one that's wrong? Am I being ungrateful? What's wrong with me? Like, why am I so unhappy? And we, just because of that feeling, like we wanted to create community where anyone else has that feeling. It's like they have a place to turn to, you know? And little do we know that that resonates with a lot of people, a lot of people, and it just ended up blowing out to become Asian Hustle Network. And from there, it's like it's catering towards our curiosity as people. Like we love helping, we love listening, we love stories, we love making an impact. We love doing whatever we can and not expecting anything in return. Like we never expect you to pay us. We never expect you to even help us in the future after us helping you. We just don't believe in the transactional relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of mentality that we run our team over the last year or so. That's the mentality that we bring on people onto the team, are people that just genuinely want to help other people.
And I relate to everything you said, because my parents, I grew up since I was 10 working my parents' gas stations, convenience stores. They had that survival mentality. My father, when he came to America, after the Vietnam War, he built himself to work for AT&T at the time. When the telecommunications network was a big, I was born in Oklahoma, so it was like the biggest network, right? He built himself up, but that Asian entrepreneurship in him, he's like, I don't want to work for anybody for the rest of my life. We had like a corner house in this suburban cul-de-sac, the American dream. And he left all that to go to California and start his own business.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. As a child, I didn't understand why we had to move, but now a little older, I understood that. In envisioning that you're not subjugated to anybody, you are your own boss. You can make your own rules. I understand now. Now I'm not the greatest entrepreneur like my father, but I've absorbed that for the last 30 years of my life, and I do understand why I also want to be my own kind of entrepreneur, not like him, but in a way where I can be entrepreneurial in my community and how we utilize our assets for the better of the community. And that's definitely what you guys do with the Asian Hustle Network. So I just want to dial it back just a little bit. So how did the name and why did you start it? I mean, you talked about a little bit about that, but where did the name come from for yourself? Like when you sat down to decide this, we're gonna do this together. What should we call it? And why did you choose? I think one of the first platforms was Facebook, because like, all right, we'll do it here.
Yeah,
I remember adding myself to the group. I was like, okay, what's this all about?
You were early on, Dan. Like, you were one of the earlier members.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
So if we dial it way back, so it really started the group actually started in November of 2019, but I think the inspiration of it came before that. So it was probably 2018. And if we dial it way back, it was when Bryan and I went to Tokyo, and there's this shrine in Tokyo called the Meiji Shrine. So if you go to the Meiji Shrine, you'll actually see people writing like their wishes and their hopes and dreams on like a wooden tablet, and they'll hang it on a tree. So I think that it really resonated with us because often in Asian culture, we have all these like dreams and we have all these wishes, but we don't know who to tell them to, right? Maybe we want to like talk to our family about it, but we are not sure what their reactions are going to be, right? We want to tell our friends, but we don't know what their reactions are going to be. And so people often go to temples or churches to, pray or write these wishes down. And it really touched us because every single person has their own story, right? And that story is unique to that person. You can't really take that away. And so we really took this concept and thought, okay, every person has their own story. We definitely know that Asians have often felt like, they are silenced, they don't have a voice, but they do want to share their story. They just don't know who to share it to, right? And so we kind of like held on to this concept for a little bit. And Bryan, he actually comes from a real estate background. So when he was
software engineering.
And software engineering.
Everyone
so
forget that part.
when he was unhappy with his 9-to-5 job, he was doing real estate on the side. So at that time, I was also doing a little bit of interior design, working with Bryan, and we were going to a lot of real estate conferences and meetups. We would always go to these real estate conferences and always see the same thing. There would be a panel of speakers, but none of them were of Asian descent. And you would see this not only at real estate conferences, you would see these at like big conferences as well, right? And we often realize that Asians are underrepresented in many different industries. So, we took this notice, we went back home. We tried to look up, online communities for Asian entrepreneurs or professionals. We couldn't find any. And oftentimes, if we did find some, they were, more of like comedy, humor, like making jokes about Asian culture, which is like really entertaining sometimes. But, we really wanted to provide something of value to people who want to, start their own business or, go up the ranks in corporate, right? And there were other ones that were like very well established Asian inspired organizations, but you really had to be like a top level entrepreneur or else you couldn't get in. And so we thought this really defeated the purpose of bringing the community together. And being in real estate, Bryan actually has a lot of like investor friends who started like Facebook groups that were real estate related. Like, hey, I have this deal here, like put it inside this Facebook group. Mm-hmm. But it didn't really occur to us until like one random day when Bryan actually had this idea. He's like, you know what? I really want to do something for the Asian community, but I don't know what it is. So, that idea kind of sprouted in Bryan's head. And us being in, various Facebook groups, we're just like, like Facebook groups is a thing. Like, why don't we just kind of like do it on Facebook group and see how it goes, right? And we didn't think anyone was going to see it anyway, because we were like, okay, only our internal circle of friends are going to be invited, so Bryan invited his friends. It must have been like 1,000 friends at max. And then I invited my friends, must have been like 500 friends at max, right? So 1,500 people. We're like, okay, that's tops what it's going to be. But going back to the name, like, we had to create a name before creating the actual group, right?
Sure, the name Maggie.
So as you know, the name is Asian Hustle Network, but obviously we wanted to put Asian before, the name. And we didn't know what to put after that. So we were thinking, okay, community, okay, let's put network in there, right? But what goes in between those two words? What about Asian Professional Network? That sounds too formal. And then Bryan is actually really in love with the word hustle. So he said, okay,
part of my DNA.
What about Asian Hustle? We kind of played with the names a little bit. Asian Hustle. We looked up Asian Hustle on Instagram, and they were like Asian girls in like bikinis and stuff. So we're like, okay, we got to put another word to it. So Asian Hustle Network. So that's pretty much how we came up with the name. At first, I was a little bit hesitant because oftentimes people think of a bad connotation when they say hustle. Like, for example, that person hustled me, right? Or that person hustles people all the time, right? And I think that what really resonated with a lot of people inside the group was that they saw their parents hustle so hard, whether they immigrated from Asia coming to the United States or Australia, wherever. They hustled so hard, they gave up everything that they had back at home to provide a better life for themselves and their children, and they hustled every single day, right? And I think that one of the goals that we tried to do when we started this group was redefine the word hustle, and everyone just kind of fell in love with that name. So that's kind of where the origin came about and how we started to come up with that name.
Dan, what do you think of Asian Hustle Network, the name?
I loved it. Well, I'll say this: from your 1,500 combined group of invitees, somehow I got invited. You know, somebody, I don't remember who it was, but they said you got to join this network, and I was like, all right, let me check this out, because I'm all about as a not only just an Asian American or Vietnamese American man who's an entrepreneur in some ways, but also just I believe uh, community is important for you know communities like ours that don't often get an opportunity to speak or rise up to the occasion to voice out independence, because we're, as you said, often taught to stay low, unassuming, don't rock the boat, right? But after joining the network and seeing what's going on organically in terms of introductions, everybody's like introducing themselves. Then I asked, I invited some friends. I know you guys know Sarah Wynn. I was like, "Yo, Sarah, you gotta check this out," and it took off. And I saw other people who joined your network take off with their brand and showcasing it. I was like, this is like Shark Tank, but in Facebook group right now. Everybody was like really trying to shine and work on their chops. But what I saw was more and more this global community coming together and them being aware that no, we're not living in or working in these silos. Everybody's doing this, but now we have a place to now showcase and network. And I'm gonna talk about that because around the almost 2 years you guys have been around, it's almost collectively in all the social media platforms, 100,000 people, give or take. That's crazy within 2 years, just doing something on supposedly free platforms, and that you've grown it into multiple channels like a podcast, other different talking series, especially on platforms like Clubhouse. So tell me, how has been the response for the Asian Hustle Network for you guys within this rapid change in the environment of the world? How did you take the enthusiasm, and was it like kind of crazy to you? Would you guys wake up every day like, yo, this is crazy?
Yeah. I think the first couple of weeks we were just so caught up in the energy and the hype. It's like, oh wow, like we're creating something that people are using as a noun. To us, I was like insane because it was so hard to like visualize this idea coming alive and seeing it come alive. Seeing people really appreciate the brand and what our mission's all about was like the best feeling ever. But the next thing was like, how do we keep on innovating? How do we keep on growing? Well, how can we keep on better serving the community? We can't just stop right here, So unfortunately, when people gave us compliments, we sort of like, okay, we'll take it. It's great, but we'll continue improving. And that's the mentality that we always had since day one, is the hunger mentality. Not hunger for ourselves financially anyway, but hunger for better reputation, higher Asian reputation in media and in corporate ladders, because these are the things that bother us back when we were employees. Like, why am I being passed up for my promotion? Why, when you look statistically, you see a lot of Asian CEOs as founders because they weren't offered the same opportunities to get into these C-suites with these corporations, And when we start thinking about that, the emotions start firing up. I'm like, okay, there's so many things that we can do. We're going to study other organizations. We're going to reach out to other leaders. What's the best way to reach out to other leaders? We're going to have a podcast, That way we can not only create better representation, but to ask questions that we need to ask ourselves. Like, how can we better grow Asian Hustle Network? And over time, we have such an early adopter mindset where we see a new platform, we want to be on there, and mainly because we want to make sure that someone has a tribe and a house called home. That's the most important thing to us. Because when we first hopped on Clubhouse late last year, we felt out of place. We felt lost. We felt like we didn't have anywhere to go to and turn to. And we're wondering if more people felt the same way, And not to claim all the credit, because there's a community of us on Clubhouse that grew the Asian community when we started hosting Asian themed rooms over and over and over, until eventually now it's just an autopilot. Like every time you go on Clubhouse, see an Asian room, And I like to think that that's the impact of a small knit group of people who dare to challenge the status quo, to dare to dream big, because these group of people are the ones that will make changes that would absolutely influence everyone around them to make the change, you know. And that's basically the gist of why we've been growing different platforms so quickly. And you know, we just have an early adopter mindset. We have this, let's do it, let's grow the community, let's build a house, let's build a tribe.
I want to interject on that early adopter mindset. Rarely, right in the beginning of Asian Hustle Network, you were throwing a lot of because it was growing so rapidly. There were a lot of events. You guys threw a lot of events.
Yeah.
What got to me was you actually flew out to most of these events, and these events were all around the world. I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys yet. I was like, are they really flying out themselves and hosting? This thing just started. How did Tell me a little bit more about meeting other organizers within different cities, and how did these events, when you arrive, what did you feel with the audience? What kind of people did come to these events?
Yeah. That's such a powerful question. I feel like the events hold such a dear space in my heart just because I miss them so much. And I can't wait to get back to in-person events again. Obviously we love connecting with people virtually, but there is just that magic that you can't get anywhere else other than in-person events. When we had first created Asian Hustle Network, we had a lot of people reach out and say that, in-person events was in very high demand. And a lot of people were connecting through the Facebook group, but obviously they wanted to connect in person, right? It's so hard just to connect virtually, as we all know. We've had to do that during COVID. And people were like, I really want to meet you in person. I really want to meet this person in person. So, we took that feedback and we're like, okay, let's host our first event in San Francisco, which is where we are based. And so we thought, okay, let's make it easy for our first one. Let's do it close by. And honestly, it was just so beautiful because we had so many people reach out because we were asking, hey, can we get help here and here and here? We need sponsors. Is anyone willing to sponsor and offer their services, or, just maybe offer their products? We want to do a giveaway, and it would be great to just promote these small business owners inside, San Francisco or around the Bay Area. And people were just raising their hands left and right saying like, I would love to help. I would love to participate in this event. When we actually were on the day of the event, we had so many people at that event that even the security guard said that we are violating fire hazard code.
We're just like, what is that?
No. He's saying like, you guys have too many people. Like, you guys didn't tell me that you guys would have so many people. And like, honestly, this was our first time kind of holding big events. Like we weren't like extremely skilled at holding big events. We honestly just wanted people to network and connect with each other and just have that space to really like meet each other in person.
I do want to mention that we sold out for the first event 350 tickets in like half an hour. We're just like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah. And I wanted to add in like, I don't think the surprising part is that we were flying out to these events, but the surprising part is that
people come out to these events.
Were flying from other states and other countries to these events.
Yeah. So people were telling us like, oh, I flew in from so-and-so, or I was just like, what?
Yeah.
That's so crazy for Asian Hustle Network. That's so insane. Yeah. And yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah. And so the first event, obviously, we had a few hiccups here and there. Some things that you don't normally think about is, are they going to have garbage cans? So people were like holding their chicken and rice plates like the whole night after, like hours after they finished their dinner.
Yeah.
But we learned after that, obviously, right? And so our second event, we actually held it in SoCal, which is when we had.
Second event?
Yeah, that was our second event.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we actually had people reach out to us and say like, hey, I would love to,
help you co-plan.
Yeah, be in your place to help you co-host, co-plan. Shout out to Calvin Hang and Kevin Seo for actually stepping in and saying, I would really love to help AHN and, just make this big, like make it really big.
Yeah.
And they rented out, or they didn't rent out, but they actually found a sponsor that would allow us to take up space in a food hall. So a lot of these, sponsors, they just gave us pro bono services. It was just an amazing thing. And they did an incredible job at blowing this event up. We didn't pay any dollars in marketing. We didn't pay any dollars in ads. And we ended up having 500 people come out to this in-person event. And, like Bryan and I just being on that stage and giving that speech, I was so nervous at the beginning because I was like, oh man, I got to make this perfect. This is our biggest event thus far. But I think when Bryan and I were on that stage,
It felt surreal.
it just felt so surreal. And like, I honestly, we just really wanted to help the community without actually, like having them know that they're being helped, And so when we were on that stage, I think that I kind of just froze because I was like, okay, don't think about the audience, just think about the message that you want to send to the community. And we really just wanted to bring the community together because it really was our time for Asians to speak up and share their voice, use their voice, right? And it was just a surreal moment. And yeah, I think Bryan can say the same.
I think what happened to us the first couple events was how naive we were with event planning. Because like now that we're well versed into it, it's cost a lot of money to put together these events. Because we're so naive, we always went with zero budget. Because first of all, we had no money. Second of all, we know what we were doing. And thirdly, it's like we're so optimistic about everything. And just finding how do we do this, And we like to joke that the first 7 events that we had, we got married 7 times. It's like every event's like planning a wedding, food, venue, entertainers, guests, sponsors, whatever, like it's just like we're just joking. Like once you do get married, it's like we know what we're doing. It's gonna be perfectly planned out. It's gonna be awesome. But yeah, I think that was crazy. Like just seeing like events pop up around the world. We had people in Australia reach out to us, and that was like a new playing field. Because first of all, I'd never been to Australia. Second of all, I was so amused by that accent at first. I'm like, oh, you guys sound so cool, At the same time, it's like they really like helped us grow in Melbourne, and then Sydney, and then we're actually things are so safe over there right now that we're thinking about hosting events over there this summer.
I mean, the timing is in due time, for more international. I'm thinking that you since then, since the beginning of your events, and due to the pandemic, things closed down, but you've grown your network probably, or the network itself, all across the world. I'm sure everybody's chiming in from so many countries. When I'll jump in one of your clubhouse meetings, I hear so many accents and people, describing and enjoying this opportunity to be highlighted. Because you can tell that sometimes people are nervous. They haven't ever spoken in public, and that everybody's just holding their phone like this. Really, seeing a whole room of hundreds of people. You're like, hi, my name is.
Yes.
But you're giving people opportunity. Like if you're gonna, you want to showcase your product, yourself, even yourself as the product. Here's your chance to strengthen your voice and practice that. You talk about practicing doing those events and learning how to, set up events. You're helping people practice being themselves. That's one of the beautiful things, not only in just entrepreneurship, it's probably selling a pitch, working on a business plan, you're telling them how to be confident. That's one of the things that there's a million businesses and all. I think it doesn't matter who's creating a business, but if you're not confident in how you're selling it, it's not going to be, the person who might be investing or giving you that space or helping production. They're going to be like, I don't know if that's going to sell, right? But sometimes it's just that little fire in the pit of your stomach. You're like, give a little pizzazz, and they're like, okay, I'm going to gamble on you. And I think that's beautiful because I find myself enjoying what people are saying, especially from you guys, giving them opportunity. I'm like, all right, I got to work on my game too.
Fine, man. You're our inspiration.
It's all about nervousness and just pushing it out. So as far as the growth of Asian Hustle Network and different avenues you guys are exploring, is it hard really balancing your lives now? I'm just gonna be honest. I'm like, I have a lot of work in the library world and myself. When I try to do my own creative stuff, that's another, and to deal with my parents and family, that's another whole issue. How do you guys do it? Because you guys are on late sometimes. I'm on late, and I'm like, they're still up.
Yeah.
How are they doing this?
It's
I don't know if there's ever a perfect way to answer this.
I would say it's more passion things. It never feels like work to us. Like we're always on our phone anyways, on social media, surfing the web. But now it's like we have a purpose to be on our phones, and we have a reason to be. And to us, it's like it always ends up being really late at night because that's when we have our best ideas. That's when we brainstorm the most. We write things down. It's like, I want to implement this. I see this and that. It's a time for us to like decompress throughout our day. And ironically, our best way to decompress is to go back to social media, which is basically all our platforms on. And that's when we catch the best ideas. But I mean, in terms of work-life balance, there is a lot of things that we do better. Like I'm looking at a lot of ways where I can sort of delegate out some of the day-to-day thing, like editing the podcast or editing graphics or stuff like that. So I can focus on things that I like to do, which is like I like to hear people's voices. I like to hear people's stories. I like to create space for everyone. I would consider myself unafraid, unapologetic in that way, where it's like I want to hear from everyone. I want to be able to support everyone, and I could die trying. I would die trying to make that happen. And that's always been my gung ho attitude, and that part has never really changed since day one. I still feel as enthusiastic about Asian House Network as I did ever. But the only thing is, that really get to me is like I feel really bad, and I can't respond to all my emails, all the messages. I just and then I find myself, all right, I can't. I'm not feeling good today. I'll do it tomorrow, and it keeps on stacking and stacking and stacking. I'm just like, oh no. And I feel really bad when I have to start using the word no. I can't meet with you. I can't do this because you give everyone like half an hour every day, and you give like 40 people half an hour every day. You have no time to yourself, and that's when we start thinking about the future of Asian Hustle Network. Is like we need to protect our mental mind state, otherwise we can't continue going.
Mhm.
And burnout is something that we felt time and time again. But the thing that keeps us pushing forward is that our desire to see this happen, our desire to serve the community, our desire to make the community better. So we go through burnout to like 1 or 2 days. We're just laying ourselves. I absolutely cannot move. I'm just like, oh, I can't move, can't move, can't move, I can't think. And then something like a miraculous inspiration happens. Like someone sends a random DM saying, "Hey, thank you for everything, and you helped me do this and that, and you helped me really break through." And that's when it's like, yeah, get up, let's do it again because job's not done. I can keep pushing forward, keep moving forward.
I think that what a lot of people don't remember also is that Asian Hustle Network, obviously, it's a community, right? But we have 100,000 people inside the community, right? So if something goes wrong or something, they're unhappy about, there's not like a customer service type of line, right? Like we can't redirect them to someone on the other line saying like, hey, how can I help you, right? Because ultimately
We are the
we are the customer service, right? And so it does take a lot of time, right? But that just goes with any startup, right? That just goes with any organization that is in the first couple of years trying to get ramped up, trying to like mobilize the community. And especially now during this time with what's happening with the Asian community, like we do feel like we, have that platform and the responsibility to, inform people, educate people, and really amplify Asian voices, right? And so it is really busy at this time, but there are things that are really have been really helpful for us, just like growing the community and having helpful people in the community actually reach out to us and say like, hey, I see this person being disrespectful in the community. I just wanted to reach out and personally tell you, in case you didn't catch it. And sometimes we don't catch it, right? So we're not like on our phones 24/7, where we're just like
we're on our phones 23 hours a day. Okay?
23 hours, not 24.
the 1 hour that we're not, it's like, oh.
1 hour that we're not, there are some things that we don't catch. So the people who actually like take the time to, tell us like, hey, I think this person is being a little bit disrespectful, I just wanted to reach out and tell you, like that is extremely helpful for us because it takes that load from us and it kind of like, makes our burden a little bit lighter, and we thank them for it because it's just so helpful. So those are just like the little things that have been super just like beneficial and helpful for us because we see the community like coming together and being so supportive and helpful.
Yeah, we love when the community protects itself, does self-policing because it shows the value that we're bringing to the community. And that honestly keeps us going. The story keeps us going. The prior DMs keep us going. The only thing that kind of not keep us going is when people are like, why is my posting so long to be approved or stuff like that? It's like we're just a 2-man team plus our team.
That's just it's funny because now you're telling me because I was wondering who does their graphics because that takes a lot of time too, the editing for the podcast. I was like, they must have a huge team, because this is a lot of work. In the library world, I don't have a team. It's me doing the flyers, me booking and all that. But now I hear it, you're just like me.
Yeah, there's no, yeah, we're in this together, man.
But it definitely, take care of your mental health, your physical health, because I really see this growing bigger. So be sure to be able to, give yourself that time and space. I don't know how to say no as well. It's hard. You want to help the world, but you're just like, I sometimes you got to give that 2-letter word, politely. No, sorry, no.
We learn how to say no now, but only because we really want to continue pushing forward.
Hmm. Saying yes always to helping the community, all communities, And I want to lead actually into speaking about what's currently happening with our AAPI community during this pandemic, as well as the rhetoric that was spewed by our previous president, and certain racist groups during the pandemic, and how it has affected us as Asian Americans, South Asians, Pacific Islanders, Filipinos, and all, the groups that, identify, as Pan Asian, and just how that has now, morphed. Because in the beginning, it was, when I saw it, entrepreneur talk, businesses, but somehow eventually, I don't know when it started shifting to the narrative of supporting one another, do community activism, and through groups like, hate is a virus, we are uprisers, stop Asian hate, stop AAPI hate, all these new activist organizations coming together rapidly to respond to this violence. So when did you see that shift, or has it always existed? And how has it been working with these groups in the last year or so?
Yeah, I can sort of answer that. I know we just had a event recently, and a lot of emotions going on within the Asian community, especially the rising Asian crime. I personally have founded Hate the Virus with my two co-founders, Michelle and Tammy. I just kind of I left the team in January after a year to focus on more on Asian Hustle Network. I found myself like too divided. I was like, oh crap, I was like, oh man, that's too much work. So I have to focus on one thing. But I think the when working with Hates the Virus and working with Tammy and Michelle has definitely influenced my mindset. What does it mean to be a community? What does it mean to come together? What does it mean to support? And although these feelings aren't new to me, it made me aware of everything. And I think the crazy thing about building any sort of company or organization is that when you feel something, the community is reflected into the community. So as you continue growing, the community grows with you, you know? And that's right. What you were witnessing was, when I first started Asian Hustle Network, I was about business, 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 business. I want to be able to help other people get out of their 9 to 5 into a hustle career that's more fulfilling. But as you watch the community sort of like submerges culture into this uplifting, helping culture, was when I got more involved with Hate's Virus. I'm like, there's so much injustice, inequalities that we need to overcome, everything. And that really changed my perspective. So the programs that we came out with for Asian Hustle Network was all about how do we help each other, how we see each other as one identity. How do we look past our own differences to make changes for our community and build a foundation that not only that we will benefit from, but our future generations will.
Yeah, and just to add on top of that, I think Bryan touched on a lot of great points. I think when we have first started Asian Hustle Network, obviously it was a lot about entrepreneurship and business and professional career. And after COVID-19 had happened and we started seeing, the racism and xenophobia happen against the Asian, not only Asian Americans, but Asians all over the world, and with Bryan starting Hate is a Virus and after separating from Hate is Virus, we definitely knew that we had that platform and that power to use our platform to educate and share information and share valuable resources to our audience that could be extremely helpful because although we are about entrepreneurship, we do represent the Asian community. And a lot of the issues that we're seeing with the AAPI community today, a lot of Asians are affected by it emotionally, mentally, even physically, as we've seen. And so if we can use our platform to, provide good social impact and provide resources and education, it would be extremely helpful. And people are looking to us for direction as well, right? So we do represent the Asian community. People are looking for resources for the Asian community. And we always thought that it is best to say something rather than to stay silent. And we've always agreed to this. So, we made it very vocal, when COVID-19 had first started and when we started seeing the racism and xenophobia happen, we've been very vocal about our stance against, anti-Asian hate crimes. And we hope to continue to use our platform to continue to, educate and provide resources to the community.
I think one of the greatest things that I've noticed with what you've done and many of these organizations done is because of misinformation that gets either spread through somebody who just hearsay from secondary sources, not from the primary source itself, that you guys do list reputable organizations, resources that people can fact check, and that's a big thing for librarians. We got to fact check everything, make sure it's not coming from a place that's not in the well-being of our community. It's grateful because a lot of people don't have time to look up these things for themselves or know where to go. We would like to believe that our citizenry is well educated and understands, but not everybody has the same opportunities, the internet connections, the same resources as many people do. So the fact that we can get it out either in print form, digital, and what you guys do, it's amazing. And it's creating a lot of more well-informed people, especially in our AAPI community, which only spearheads more leaders in the future who know what's up. They're not going to be confused about what's going on and where to go for assistance. Can you, kind of describe some of I know you guys touched upon it a little bit, but some of the difficulties as going forward with balancing this organization that has, I don't even want to look at your inbox or DMs, that I can only imagine literally hundreds, if not thousands of messages at different time zones at once, or what you alluded a little bit to, self-policing on the platform by the community, but have you seen some things that, that could be damaging because of the rapid success and speed at this growth?
I think we're pretty blessed to have a very solid culture that we continually enforce and build over time. That in some ways, the culture is keeping the community together and is keeping it robust, keeping us thriving, keeping us supported. Most importantly, um, I would say the hardest part now it's like we have to look at ways to build a everlasting organization, sustainable organizations in ways where unfortunately we won't be a part of the day to day anymore. Like we have to be more vision based, more partnership based, because you know it will never become the entity that we believe that it can become if we continue holding on to it so tightly. So that's one thing from a leadership perspective that we are still grasping and overcoming, because essentially we want to make sure that even without us, like the community will still be there for each other, and that's so important to us. It's so important to us. Like, but at the same time, it's like we have goals and missions from our original mission since day one that now we have the opportunity to take on. We want to see more Asians in mainstream media, higher investment in corporate ladders, and we're going to do whatever we can to get there. You know.
Oh, do you want to say something, Maggie?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think just with running such a large community, and it might not be large to everyone. Obviously, numbers are relative, right? But I think that just based on where we came from, having 0 members to now 100,000, we are bound to have multiple members kind of pull us in different directions. Everyone has their own thoughts and opinions. And I think that what has really helped drive us forward is just remembering what our mission is. I think just myself and Bryan being so in the weeds on the day to day, it's sometimes hard to see, what is our North Star or what is our why, what is our purpose, right? And with so many different people kind of pulling us in different directions, we love hearing feedback. We love hearing different people's opinions, and we're always welcoming of that, right? But I think we've been very vocal about what our mission has been since day one, which has been, just empowering and uplifting Asian entrepreneurs, professionals, allies, anyone who represents themselves or identifies themselves as Asian, has really helped us kind of drive our mission forward and our vision forward. So it's really been our keeping us grounded in that sense. Yeah.
I mean, I'm listening to you both, and I just know that that's some, that's like CEO talk right there. We're gonna have to step away from the day to day and vision, but we're gonna allow everything to grow organic. I'm like, that's talk of it's gonna blow up, and I think because of your hearts being very pure about what the community is about, it's going to be successful. And as a part of the Asian Hustle Network myself, I'm there to make sure it's supported in that way, and that other people who take good things from it also invest back, because that's the only way the ecosystem works. If we all share the resources. It sounds very hippie-ish, but it does. That's how our families help one another. And we still hear these stories about Asian families pooling resources together, whether it's money or their homes. Like, I had so many cousins live in my house over the years. I didn't know who was family or not family, but eventually they were able to get themselves up to speed and have their own home or place to live, and that's due to community, right? And that's what we try to really push out and talk about. Well, I just want to say, what's next? I mean, if you can't talk about it, it's cool, but what's next for the Asian Hustle Network?
Talk about anything you want to ask us, Dad. There's no secret what we're trying to do.
Ask away, man.
Yeah.
Oh, exclusive. Well, what is next?
Yeah. So we are in the process of becoming the next Asian TED Talk of the world. And the reason being is that we want people on stage that look like us, sound like us, come from similar experiences, because we want to inspire our next generation leaders that it is possible. And the reason being is that, for Maggie and myself, when we were thinking about role models growing up, we couldn't name one Asian person, right? It's mainly Caucasian. And we wanted to change that playing field. We want to change what perception of success and being outspoken looks like. It's also partly because we're at the age now where we're thinking about starting a family, like what kind of world they want to create for my kids. In my situation, I want to create a world where my kids have someone to look up to that look like them and sound like them.
I really love that. Do you have any comments, Maggie? You hiding anything?
No, I don't think we're hiding anything. Yeah, you can ask us anything, but pretty much we do really want to be the Asian TED Talk. Just, having started with so many in-person events and having such inspirational guest speakers just share their stories, and having, the Facebook group, people are sharing their stories on there as well. And now Clubhouse, people, when we say, the stage is yours, and people are sharing their stories on Clubhouse, it's just been so inspirational for us. And I think that a lot of us want to kind of find that platform in our life to share our story, but oftentimes we don't know where to turn to, or maybe we don't have that community of like-minded individuals that we can find very near and dear to our heart. So we just want to kind of provide that opportunity and that platform and stage for all people who identify themselves as Asian and allies of Asian people as well, to share their stories, and how it all kind of ties back to our identity and our cultural heritage, has just been so inspirational for us, so that we hope to kind of provide that foundation for later generations as well. Very much like so how we kind of get this inspiration of Asian Hustle Network from the earlier generation who has created organizations that are Asian inspired.
Shout out to Asian Avenue.
Shout out to Asian Avenue, yes. And people have said that we are kind of like the Asian Avenue 2.0. And that's just very true. We're so moved by that. And I hope that we can kind of be that inspiration for the next generation of entrepreneurs and professionals as well.
And just to quickly talk about Asian Avenue, what made Asian Avenue back in the late 90s and early 2000s amazing, because it was just grassroots. It's finding one another, finding faces like ours, finding stories like ours, finding the same passion, and actually networking. I've never met so many of my friends now over the decades because oh, you also like this music. You also are an artist.
Mhm.
What is crazy? You also like One Voice or Kai. You know, it's like
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
you know, it was amazing. And I was like, I'm not alone in this, you know. I love Asian things too, but you know, the way we love ourselves, you know, because we did not love ourselves for so long. And
Mhm.
this is why I see it through the Asian Hustle Network. Everybody loves being who they are. They're not afflicted by what they see in the mirror. They're like, I'm proud and I'm going to make my voice, my ideas, my dreams come true. And I really think you guys are helping that achieve that for thousands, if not many more, you know, in the future.
Thank you so
Um,
much, man.
Before we close, you know, I just want to ask you guys to like kind of drop some knowledge. What if there's other people out there who want to create something similar or things that you picked up during your, you know, your events, your own entrepreneur journey? What are some tips for people who want to create, you know, get out there with their idea, say business idea? You know, what are some core tips that you've learned and that they should adapt to their
Yeah.
aesthetic? Yeah.
I want to say this is that ideas are dime a dozen. So don't be afraid to share them. It's all about execution and vision. You know, no one can execute that idea the same way as you. You know, it's always gonna be some unique spin to it. So don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid to get feedback. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing that we learned along the way is that we're not afraid to share our ideas. We'll tell everyone anything that they want to know about Asian Hustle Network because we have such a growth mindset where we just want to improve. We want you to nitpick at this idea. We want you to tell us what the shortcomings of this idea, you know? And with that mentality, it's like we're not afraid to put ourselves out there. We're not afraid to share because we just believe in the abundance mindset a lot.
Yeah. And I think my one tip for anyone who is, trying to start a community or maybe they're trying to start a business, it doesn't matter which one. I think the most important thing is to make it personal. I think that a lot of people who, actually buy products from companies or actually follow a community is that they can actually relate to other people inside that community or inside that company, right? If I can really relate heart to heart on that story. It's all about storytelling. And if I can relate one-on-one with that story, I would most likely, follow that community and, you know, see what they're doing and, probably follow it for the rest of my life because it really is about storytelling. And I would just say, yeah, just make it personal. And the culture is very important. I think a lot of people actually, stay within Asian Hustle Network because they see that our culture is so strong. And I remember one person actually coming out and telling Bryan and myself that they didn't even like have to talk to anyone or have like a transaction with anyone. They just like automatically trust everyone inside Asian Hustle Network because they see the culture that is so just alive and pure inside Asian Hustle Network. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are great two tips, and I will leave it at that. And I just want to tell the people out there, if you haven't checked out Asian Hustle Network, regardless if you're Asian or not, definitely check it out because I was pretty amazed by the type of audience you were able to amass from famous entrepreneurs, actors, actresses, producers. It's just it's very welcoming, and everybody has a equal say in how it moves. And I've seen a lot of collaboration happen because of that, and that's beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
Maggie, Bryan, thank you so much for spending time with me and the Santa Clara City Library. Um,
Thank you, Dan.
I hope I can get to kick it with y'all in this in real life someday soon. You know?
Mm.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah, can't
it.
wait.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
for
We're
right.
sure.
we're close by anyway. So
I
Yeah,
know.
look
You
forward
know.
to it, Dan.
Well, if anything, you guys have a great afternoon, and I'll catch you again. And everybody out there watching, peace. Thank you. Be safe.
Awesome. Thank you,
thank you,
Dan.
Dan.
All right.
Yeah.
Peace.